Hello and welcome to Everfree Radio. My name is Brushin.
I'm Crescendo.
And I'm AutumnSpice.
And today we're bringing you our review of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic Season 2, Episode 23, Ponyville Confidential. This is a Cutie Mark Crusader-centric episode, delving a little bit into more of the shenanigans that those three little fillies get into in their quest to find their cutie marks.
We've been getting a lot of attention on the Cutie Mark Crusaders lately. Do you think it's because they're trying to maybe give a little more aim towards the younger audience and give them a little more characters to relate to?
I don't know. Considering the fact that the Cutie Mark Crusaders were originally intended to be breakout characters for their own series that would target a younger audience than even what My Little Pony Friendship is Magic currently targets, maybe they're just trying to dive into more of the stuff that they were originally intending for the Cutie Mark Crusaders. This might just be a lot of stuff they had left over from the earlier planning stages that's now being reworked into episodes of Friendship is Magic.
It's also just possible that they're just expanding their other characters rather than just the main six this season.
They are, definitely. The Cutie Mark Crusaders episodes always seem to expand Ponyville itself. As you will see in this episode, it seems to expand not only the Crusaders themselves, but a lot of the background ponies, the characters in the school, and a lot of the information about how Ponyville works.
Yeah, I agree. They really are a lot about the interaction between the Cutie Mark Crusaders and the town, main six primarily, but the town as a whole, in their quest to find their cutie marks. You always typically get at least a little bit of development from a couple of the other peripheral characters, whether it be the main six in that episode or somebody else, in addition to all of the Cutie Mark Crusaders development you get with each episode, even though by the end of the episode, it's always back to status quo because they're probably never going to get their cutie marks, people. It's a sad fact, but that's kind of the way of television. It's just like with Star Trek Voyager. It lasted, 7 seasons before they managed to get home, and that was the entire point of the series, was they're looking for a way home after getting lost. Blah-de-blah-de-blah. You're never going to get home until the end of the series. The Cutie Mark Crusaders are the same way. They're never going to get their cutie marks until the end of the series, and even that is unlikely.
I will actually laugh if they throw a fastball and, get their cutie marks in Season 3. But they'd still be the same friends. They'd still go on adventures together. They'd basically become a miniature main six.
Yeah, but you lose an easy piece of writing. The convention of using them in the vein of, look, here's the Cutie Mark Crusaders trying to get their cutie marks again, watch the shenanigans. That's really easy to put them into odd situations because they're trying all of these extravagant ways of getting their cutie marks.
Even the more common conventions that they use, that even the ones that we thought were going to be very overused and not so interesting, turned out to be great in the end. Like the love potion. We were like, oh, love potion, come on.
Yeah.
It still turned out to be creatively used and fun. The Cutie Mark Crusaders are a device that are going to be kept for a while. I'm convinced they're going to be kept.
Yeah. Their lack of cutie marks is an easy plot device to use for the writing.
I will say, though, regarding Autumn's point, this episode is no exception. The gossip column has been done in a few shows before, but it's so very entertaining.
Yes. Now, that brings us back to the episode. Now, just to start us off here, I got a lot of comments after our last episode review that people actually enjoyed the more in-depth analysis, the longer, more drawn out, where we basically give an episode play-by-play. So we're going to go back to our old style and just bring it to you as it goes. So kicking this off here, we have the Cutie Mark Crusaders leading us into the episode at the Ponyville school, where they are, what else, bummed because they still haven't gotten their cutie marks, which also leads into the introduction of a new background pony, one of their classmates, Featherweight. And dear Lord, somebody feed that colt a sandwich.
Poor little guy.
It's another awkwardly proportioned teen Fluttershy.
Now, bringing us around and about to that whole thing, Scootaloo and Sweetie are upset because even Featherweight has gotten his cutie mark, so Apple Bloom gives them this idea to get their cutie marks that's newspaper related, but Granny Smith calls her off before she can share it. So Scoots and Sweetie then start trying to figure out various different newspaper-related methods of getting their cutie marks, which include box packing, nest building, sailing in a newspaper boat with newspaper hats, and also paper mache, which results in messiness. It was almost a callback to the most plans resulting in being covered in tree sap bit.
We get another one of those brilliant My Little Pony montages that we've come to know and love so very much.
Yes.
I do think it's interesting to note that Apple Bloom is the one who thought up this plan this time rather than it being Sweetie Belle. Because Sweetie Belle is usually the one that comes up with the mischievousness of the group.
Well, Scootaloo's come up with some ideas. They were really bad, though.
We do realize at this point that the brains behind the Cutie Mark Crusaders really is Apple Bloom. And that's because when she says she's got an idea and throws them a newspaper, what's the thing that they think of? Well, it's not writing for the paper, which is what Apple Bloom intended. They try using it in every other way except thinking about, well, maybe she meant we were supposed to write a column in the paper.
Oh, it's wonderful. She just laughs so much.
She laughs at their misfortunes and then informs them that she meant they should write for the school paper, the Full Free Press. That brings us to the next little bit, where we go to the classroom where Cheerilee is talking about the paper, and Cheerilee brings up that she will only be involved peripherally to give the kids freedom in what goes into the paper and also experience the responsibility of having to handle it for themselves. This, I will just have to point out, is a plot device. It is a convenience for the sake of the episode even being possible, because there's no way such a thing would be the case in real life in what's the equivalent of an elementary school. But if an adult was involved with the plot that we have now, Gabby Gums would have never come into being.
No.
So Cheerilee needs to be uninvolved in order for the plot to work properly.
My first impression, absolutely, when I was viewing the episode was, what kind of a teacher is Cheerilee? First of all, for not being involved. She's allowing it to be a learning experience. Okay, that's reasonable. But then we have Diamond Tiara show up as the editor-in-chief. And I'm like, okay, if she watches her students at all, she's a really bad instructor.
She could have at least supervised without getting involved and still made sure that the columns were worthy of going out there and not being idle gossip.
Well, we're not experiencing bridal gossip. No, I'm just kidding. That pun was terrible. But the whole idle gossip thing, and actually that would have been an interesting little pun to use, bridal gossip. But when it comes to the whole gossip column bit, that really is tabloid journalism. And when I was a freshman in high school, I wrote for my high school's newspaper. And our editor-in-chief was the teacher. There was no student editor-in-chief, though we did have student editors and student proofreaders, which I ended up becoming a proofreader and editor because I wasn't good at writing the columns, but I was good at proofreading and editing and fixing the columns after they've been written, because living in America, only 30% of the kids in our schools actually know how to write the dang language. But that kind of journalism, tabloid journalism, was always slapped down. The moment somebody attempted to make a column with that or attempted to write an article with that, my teacher would immediately slap that down because it really is just idle gossip. It is tabloid journalism. So Diamond Tiara being put as editor-in-chief, as soon as Cheerilee leaves, she says, the Full Free Press is a joke, and she wants to turn it into a tabloid to gain viewership.
So she wants to turn it into a joke.
She says it's a joke, but she wants to turn it into a joke by making it a tabloid.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which is an interesting little bit. She comes off very, very J. Jonah Jameson with her handling of the paper.
I was thinking that. There's actually a picture circling around that says, I need pictures of ponies. And it's of Diamond Tiara facing out the window to the playground. And that's all I could think of when I saw that picture is of J. Jonah Jameson.
It really is.
I do think it was interesting how she had Featherweight basically go all paparazzi on everyone. Take pictures of everything.
Take pictures of everything. The sheer craziness of how many pictures he was able to get, how he was able to get them, and how he was able to get them all at once was just crazy. But we'll get back to that.
Does this photo finish his new protege?
Well, he would be a good photographer in that vein. I loved the namby-pamby pun. She refers to it as namby-pamby journalism of the past or whatever, and then one of the Phillies in the back row says, but namby-pamby was a great editor.
Oh my
that
gosh.
pun was horrible, but it was funny at the same time. I loved it. It was great.
Well, Scootaloo used that in Call of the Cutie?
She did.
He was looking for Rainbow Dash's story and was like, I'm tired of hearing all these namby-pamby stories about the cutie marks.
That's Cutie Mark
Chronicles.
Cutie Mark Chronicles, that's right.
After Diamond Tiara has told everybody what the new regime is going to be at the full free press, the Cutie Mark Crusaders decide to deal with the headache of having her in charge if it means the possibility of getting their cutie marks. So, throughout getting their first stories, which Sweetie's going to do a piece on Rarity, Scootaloo's going to do a piece on some newborn birds, and Applebloom's going to do a piece on Ponyville's history, the Cutie Mark Crusaders are put in embarrassing situations. Sweetie in Rarity's new dress, Scootaloo face planting into the mud because her wings are apparently too weak to keep her body in the air. I really do have to say, is Scootaloo handicapped physically as a Pegasus? Because seeing Poundcake fly not just by himself, but carrying Pinkie Pie in the Baby Cakes episode makes me think that there's only one of two possibilities. Either Poundcake has super strength, or Scootaloo isn't as capable as other Pegasi when it comes to flying, and maybe she's having some kind of difficulty.
8-track here in the editing booth again, because I couldn't just let this one fly without saying something. I'm of the opinion that the CMCs are supposed to represent adolescent ponies, and we all know adolescence is a time of awkward growing, where things don't always line up properly until the end. I think that Scootaloo's wings just haven't fully grown to match the rest of her body yet, hence explaining why both Poundcake can fly, baby wings on a baby body, why adult Pegasi can fly, adult wings on an adult body, and why Scootaloo can't. Adult body, child-size wings. She's just waiting for her adult feathers to come in, much like teeth.
Because we never see her fly. At most, we get a subtle gliding across the room moment in Hearts and Hooves Day, when they're making...
What about that buff pony? He can fly.
Look, there is no reason that horsepower should even be capable of flight with the way that he's designed, but you know what? I think he just frightens the air around him into lifting him off the ground.
Well, if you think back to Baby Cakes, though, Rainbow Dash and Twilight say that babies of both Pegasi and unicorns, they do get, like, bursts of energy.
There's a difference between a burst of energy and flying around at max speed all across the house while also standing on the ceiling and carrying Pinkie Pie across the room. That's not a burst of energy. That is super strength. I mean,
yeah, it's true.
Either he has super strength, or Pegasus children are supposed to be a lot stronger than Scootaloo's supposed to be.
If you think, though, Sweetie Belle and Applebloom go to their families for their story. Scootaloo doesn't. We still don't know Scootaloo's family.
It's driving everybody nuts.
Does she even have one? And if so, that's so sad.
Raised by dodo birds.
It's raised by dodo birds. Sweetie winds up having to try on Rarity's new dress design. Scootaloo face plants into mud while writing about the birds. And Applebloom, when she goes to talk about Ponyville history with Granny Smith, winds up being shown all of her old baby pictures, and they are adorable. So, Full Free Press, which I think it's a good idea to bring up the fact that it runs its presses out of the basement of the school, and the editor-in-chief gets a really big desk and a really nice chair.
I never even noticed the school had a basement before.
I don't know if it did. I think it might have just been like a tacked-on little basement, outer basement door that they kind of put there to be like, oh, we don't have a room for them to use for the Full Free Press. They use the basement. There's a little storm door outside, and it's in the basement.
Here you go, kids, take the basement.
And there's a big desk and a nice chair, and they all have typewriters, which only have 2 hoof-sized buttons. That was
great.
Hilarious. You have to wonder, how do they change letters if there's only 2 buttons on the typewriter, and each button is the size of a hoof?
No, maybe one button is change letter and the other one is type letter.
That would be so slow.
Well, oh dear God, that would be so slow. And they write...
It's like the old text phones.
Oh, God.
But they used to be fast. Weird.
That would be... Whew, I can't imagine doing
But
that.
the old typewriters were just one key for each thing, but we have hands.
Yeah,
Lyra,
we have,
what do we
we have
do?
fingers, typewriters, and keyboards.
Lyra!
I do have to think that somebody is going to be drawing a Lyra comic or fan art or something.
Yeah, like looking at the typewriter.
Questioning the typewriter because of Pony's lack of hands. So, the CMC go and they present their stories to Diamond Tiara. And Diamond Tiara, go figure, doesn't like these news stories because she wants something juicier. And so, so the CMC wondering what they're going to do for a juicy story after their original stories are tossed out the window by Jonah Diamond Tiara here. And they happened...
Jonah Tiara?
J. Jonah Diamond Tiara, Jonah Tiara, J. Tiara, Diamond Jameson... I don't know. But,
I think we broke him.
The Cutie Mark Crusaders are wondering what they're going to do for a juicy story. They're going out to report. They get their notepads and their hats, those cool old-fashioned press hats, tossed out after them. God. And then they're talking, wondering what they're going to do for a juicy story. And then Sweetie Belle overhears the hubbub and finds that Snips and Snails are stuck together with chewing gum on their bums. So they use that as their story, and it's a big hit with the school.
I think it's funny that the chewing gum is so sticky. Snails actually manages to buck Snips backwards, and the chewing gum still sticks.
Well, and there's so much of it, you have to wonder, like, what were they trying to, like, have a competition on who could chew the most gum, and then you have to wonder how it got onto their butts. It's not even like it would even be possible for one of them to have just sat in the gum and then fallen on the other one, and maybe that's how they got it stuck together, because there's just so much of it. I mean, like, you would have had to have, like, a vat of chewing gum in order to wind up with this much gum on your bum.
We've also discovered something new and startling. Cutie marks. How they work.
How do they work?
Well, it appears that if your hair is taken off, so is your cutie mark. Did you notice that?
Yeah, that is true. The cutie mark is not apparent on the flesh when it's bare. It's only apparent on the fur, or the coat, the whatever you would call it, the coat, I guess. So you gotta wonder how that kind of works there. Does the new hair that grow after you gain your cutie mark, I guess that those hairs are magically colored to your cutie mark, and then
permanent dye.
Yeah, it's kind of like a permanent dye. It grows in the color of the cutie mark. So it's kind of like a coat tattoo.
Now we do know cutie marks are magic, so...
Well, lots of stuff is magic in this show, including friendship.
Very much so.
The magic can just simply explain that.
Magic explains a lot of things in this show.
A wizard did it.
Twilight really does try to make magic into a quote-unquote science whenever she can for the show. It doesn't work very often, but she tries.
That doesn't work much.
So, Diamond Tiara and the entirety of the school love the article. And so Diamond Tiara is demanding more pieces like it. She wants to delve into Ponyville residents' personal lives and secrets, i.e. tabloid journalism. You're really focused on making this into a tabloid. That's not news, Diamond Tiara. You try to say that it's news, but it's not news. Really, it's being a busybody and a gossip. It's being a Gabby Gums.
Oh, God.
She sure thinks it's news.
But then
That's
again,
fine.
consider how often, this is not supposed to be a slight towards girls, but how often in elementary school and middle school and high school,
All the time.
were girls concerned about gossip?
I know where this is going already. All the time.
It was gossip all the time.
I think that's what this episode was angled towards, really, was that it's not such a good thing, because it is common, and it's not very nice.
And you do have to realize that the girly girl of the main six, the girliest of girls, Rarity, is the one who's trying her hardest to defend the gossip column until it becomes personal, too. So, yeah, there you go, right there.
I am glad I avoided that one in high school.
So, the Cutie Mark Crusaders also point out that they couldn't fit all of their names on the article, so they created an alias for themselves, a nom de plume, Gabby Gums, which is a nice little play on words because a Gabby Gums is essentially an old phrase used for a shameless gossiper. So that's a nice little bit of wordplay. They are now the gossip columnists for the paper, but despite their initial excitement, they've got no material to work with, which is why they've got a table full of crumpled papers and blank notepads while drinking coffee from a thermos. That's true journalist type stuff there.
It was great.
I love in this scene Apple Bloom's face. She just looks so bored. And it's actually quite like the Pony Shrug pictures that have been circling around the net for some time now.
Yes, yes. And Rarity. Oh, gosh, Rarity.
She was amazing in this episode.
She was amazing, but darn it all if she wasn't completely and totally out of line. Looking through her sister's stuff.
She admitted she was wrong later.
But I mean...
And she taught a lesson
Come on. She was admitting that it was wrong in the midst of doing it. She was literally just like, oh, this is so wrong. Oh, but I have to do it.
Hey, we've all done that before.
She'd be a huge hypocrite if she said it wasn't wrong when she was telling Sweetie Belle it was.
She told Sweetie Belle, she was like, did you feel good when I rooted through your stuff?
She's learned her lesson by later on in the episode,
towards
the big conflict of the episode. But Sweetie Belle catches her looking through her stuff, which leads to the most adorable "how dare you" in this whole series so far.
How dare you!
Because
it was great.
Sweetie Belle's voice cracks so badly. I love Claire as Sweetie Belle's voice actress, especially with these voice cracks and stuff like that.
They're so expressive.
A lot of people liked Fluttershy's "How Dare You" in Dragonshy, but this "How Dare You" trumps that like a millionfold.
By far. By far.
It's very interesting that you can knock off a unicorn's magic by flicking their horn.
And horns are apparently springing. They aren't like...
Well, hey.
Yeah.
Hey. You know, they can use their horns as flashlights, so there's an on and off switch.
I was more concerned about the fact that apparently the horn isn't a piece of the skull, like a proper horn that grows from it, because when she flicks it, it flicks as if it was like a growth, like a fleshy mass.
Well, yeah, we found out when it's quote-unquote cursed, which we found out later was just poison joke, it becomes floppy, so obviously...
That could have been because of, like, the magical means of the poison joke curse, making, like, the bone turn into floppy cartilagey sort of stuff. But now we
know otherwise, right?
Now we realize that, no, it's actually naturally made of a semi-floppy material, and it gets springy if you flick it.
Well, maybe they just did the spring thing for comedic effect. It doesn't necessarily mean that the horns are
cartoon
spring.
Physics.
Yeah, well, that's probably what it actually was, is that it was just done for comedic effect. But, all in all, Rarity loves the column, and Sweetie's surprised by this, and so she gets some good feedback from Rarity about the column in general. What ends up happening is, after realizing how much Rarity enjoyed the column, Sweetie Belle realizes that they shouldn't just be focused so much on the school, they need to expand to encompass all of Ponyville, because if Rarity enjoyed it, the rest of Ponyville might also enjoy it. So what ends up happening is they start writing columns about all of the people in Ponyville. The Full Free Press winds up getting so popular because of the columns that Diamond Tiara is now giving copies to the local newspaper for the sake of printing for the entirety of the village. So on and so forth, yada yada, building up towards our little cameo by all of the main six and stuff. While they're at the spa, talking about how interesting this Gabby Gums character is, and how interesting all of her articles are, and how fun they are, and how humorous they are.
I will say though, can you blame them for continuing to go on and expand through all of Ponyville? When you see Snips and Snail's reactions, they are loving the attention they're getting. So it's not like they've been negatively reinforced or anything.
I think they'd like any attention, honestly.
Most likely, yeah.
It's Snips and Snails.
considering that all of the main six are at the spa at the time when they're discussing how cool these articles are, how fun these articles by Gabby Gums are, we get to see, like, the full course in the spa's treatment and stuff like that with the full-blown hoofacures, as they refer to them. And the face masks and the hot tub spa treatment and stuff like that. Pinkie Pie with a towel wrapped around her head, which for some reason I just laughed at because it was so hilarious to me. And even Spike is getting some stuff done. He's got the cucumber slices over his eyes and stuff like that. Inadvertently winds up transferring those over to Rainbow Dash when Rainbow Dash pops in. Rainbow Dash attempts to eat one, and when Spike and her are talking, he takes the one that's still on her eye off, puts it back on his eye, then reaches into her mouth. To pull the other cucumber slice out, completely whole, and put it back on his eye.
Yeah.
Spike, you might want to be a little bit more concerned about hygiene. I mean, I'm sure that Rainbow Dash is good on her dental hygiene, you know, because she's very concerned about self-image. But it's not exactly the best idea to go and take something out of someone's mouth and put it on your eye.
I do love the subtle breaking of physics with Pinkie Pie, how her paper was underwater for a fair bit of time, and it comes out still very readable.
Wonderful. I thought that was great.
We also get some more with this whole thing, because Rainbow Dash was talking about how she hadn't read this particular article yet, which, by the way, the article in question, The Great and Powerful Trixie's Secrets Revealed. Now, just what those secrets are, I'm sure nobody has any idea.
Well, Pixel Kitties already has a comic out where Trixie's secret is she has all the tacos, and she's not sharing.
Oh no!
That's just silly.
She got that out so fast.
Because all of the main six are enjoying their day at the spa, and Rainbow Dash just showed up because she doesn't do that sort of girly stuff, they attempt to convince her to get a hoofacure, just to try it. And she's doing her best, but she just can't take it, and she just says she doesn't like anybody touching her hoofs. But we all know the true reason. It's because she's the tomboy character, and it's just too girly for her. So she flies out. Well, this is where everything starts to go downhill for the Cutie Mark Crusaders, because this is where they start to delve into the personal lives of ponies that the ponies would rather keep private. They post an article about Rainbow Dash being all girly, getting a hoofacure at the spa, and Rainbow Dash, so concerned with her self-image, went so far as to try and get all of the newspapers before they could have an opportunity to reach Cloudsdale, and she couldn't stop it. And apparently, just this one article about her enjoying a day at the spa, getting a hoofacure, which wound up not even happening, with her feet out and with her face currently at the point to where you couldn't tell she was having a bad time. So it was just that perfect picture where if you weren't given any context, you would think she was getting herself a hoofacure. So they went with that and they used it. And so apparently, just because she did this one girly thing, her entire self-image is ruined and she's now the laughing stock of Cloudsdale. Take note, I have remembered to say Cloudsdale in this episode, despite my last little flop twice in the last episode where I continuously referred to it as Canterlot. I don't know why I did it, but I felt like such a rube. There you go.
I think you've saved one of our audio editors a little bit of time anyway.
A little.
So this is where they start diving into the questionable materials that they're talking about.
I do love some of the other stories, like you see Big Mac with Smarty Pants.
What is Big Mac hiding? Goodness. Well, he's hiding the fact that he's got the Smarty Pants doll.
Yeah, he still has it.
Applejack sleeping on the job. Rarity. They posted the entries in her diary.
I'll destroy her!
And then Pinkie Pie being an uncontrollable party animal.
It's true! I do have a problem!
Who breaks into tears saying she has a problem.
She has
I
a
think
problem.
we need an intervention for Pinkie Pie. And of course, Fluttershy uses tail extensions. We know it's true because she hides behind the table afterwards and is crying.
She cries a sea of tears.
A sea of tears. You would need to get yourself a large swimming pool in order to put all of these.
To contain all
Her
of
house
them.
is made of wood. I imagine that wood is severely warped by this point.
She's gonna need a lot of mops.
Magic.
At least her boyfriend, Angel, her pushy boyfriend here, who's been such a jerk in previous episodes, is at least there to comfort her when people find out about her tail extensions. But I do wonder, if she uses tail extensions, how long is her tail naturally?
You know the blind bag pony?
The blind bag pony is...
That's what she looks like.
The blind bag pony is what she really looks like.
Exactly.
Oh, the other juicy one that I totally forgot. Mayor Mare's hair is not a natural shade of gray. She actually has bubblegum pink hair.
Oh my
She's
god.
got the same hair color, well, almost the same hair color as Fluttershy.
But see, now I have to wonder, if her hair's not a natural shade of gray, is she actually as old as a lot of the fandom had been taking her for? A lot of the fandom considered that since she had gray hair, she must obviously be older. Maybe not Granny Smith old, but older. Maybe late 40s, early 50s, that sort of thing. The point at which gray hairs might start to show up in mass. But is she in fact younger, now that we know that she actually has bubblegum pink hair?
Does she make herself appear old to make ponies take her more seriously?
Who knows, Bones? Maybe Granny Smith dyes her hair grey too.
I don't know. Considering that all of the memory spots of her in the past were in black and white, we still don't know what her natural hair color when she was younger was.
The fans make it blonde, right?
The fans are kind of in disagreement. Some fans draw it as blonde like AJ's, but some fans draw it as the same white platinum color that she has now, just because it's possible that she could have had white hair
Looks
when
nice.
she was young. Getting back to the point, after these juicier tabloid stories...
Oh, you forgot
Oh.
one. You forgot a really, really important
Which-
one. The one with Celestia.
Celestia! Oh, how could I forget Princess
The
Celestia?
face she made in that picture looked a lot like a certain Trollestia face. The way her eye was while she was eating that cake. Priceless.
I think it was more shock than anything. Also, we did also forget Twilight.
Yes, we did.
Oh, yes! Twilight Sparkle as a snob.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, gosh.
And then they're like, oh, Spike told us.
That's terrible. Claiming that Spike said it. Oh.
I just can't get that image of Celestia eating the cake with the troll face out of my head, though, just because the way her eye
It was-
was, like, looking backwards and up.
It was absolutely great. But you have to wonder, if she eats that much cake, how is she maintaining that figure?
Alicorn magic.
I would have actually laughed.
How many times have we brushed it off with magic?
Magic. I'm just going to cast a spell to speed up my metabolism for the day. Moving on, all of the main six are completely aghast at this. And then they're all arguing. Rarity's trying to defend the case until it's revealed that her diary entries were posted. And all of them are wondering how it could be possible. And so they present the idea of asking Sweetie Belle, because Sweetie Belle's on the staff of the paper, if she knows Gabby Gums. And Rarity's like, no! My sister would never associate with such a pony. Sweetie Belle is a sweet and responsible, and of course we get a Gilligan cut to evil pony ever. When she discovers that Sweetie Belle had Rarity's diary in her book bag, and it is in fact the Cutie Mark Crusaders who are Gabby Gums writing the stories. So
Dun dun dun.
we get a big argument between Rarity and Sweetie. Rarity basically calling Sweetie out for her hypocrisy by going and stealing Rarity's diary after she made a big deal about Rarity going through her stuff. And then the Cutie Mark Crusaders want to quit the newspaper and stop writing Gabby Gums articles, but Jameson isn't having any of it. Diamond Tiara wants those pictures of ponies. she wants the news, and she wants the tabloid journalism to stay because it's what's made them big. She wants sales and numbers rather than any kind of journalistic integrity.
It's her bread and butter, and she doesn't pay any of them.
despite it being a school project and not her job.
Yeah, it's not like they're getting paid for this.
Not to mention, Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon have the wealthiest families in Ponyville. They don't want for anything. There is no bread and butter that she needs to be putting on the table with these newspaper sales. So, they can't quit because Diamond Tiara shows that when she told Featherweight to take pictures of everything, she meant everything. And Featherweight somehow managed to get pictures of Sweetie Belle in Rarity's new dress concept, looking embarrassed, Scootaloo face planting into mud because her wings won't freaking let her fly, and Apple Bloom's baby pictures. Adorable as they are,
Terrifying.
Apple Bloom is very embarrassed about them.
Really, really young fillies are terrifying.
It was at this point that I started to think that the blackmail was going to wind up playing into how the episode would end. I was pleasantly surprised, not quite, because it kind of felt like the episode ties it up with loose ends. But I thought that they were going to bring about the blackmail as something for finishing up the episode.
Yeah.
I predicted that when nobody was going to talk to Sweetie Belle and the rest of the Cutie Mark Crusaders anymore after everyone in town finds out that they were Gabby Gums, which is what happens when they approach Rainbow Dash saying, "Oh, you wouldn't mind us getting an interview?" Well, she's like, "Everybody in town knows you're Gabby Gums. Nobody likes you anymore." And then proceeds to put a rain cloud over their heads and shower them down with it.
I suppose you could say she really rained on their parade.
Ugh.
It wasn't much of a parade anymore at that point. At this point, I predicted that by the end of the episode, when they couldn't get anybody to listen to them, they were going to say, "We're sorry, but we were told to do this in order to keep our jobs on the paper, and we can't quit now because we're being blackmailed," and that something would happen to show it off, especially since at the time in the episode when Diamond Tiara shows them the blackmail material, we see Featherweight snickering at the window, taking pictures of the situation. And I thought that that was going to come out and bite Diamond Tiara in the haunches, because that was basically visual proof that they were being blackmailed by Diamond Tiara. And I thought that that's how they were going to end the episode. Needless to say, I was surprised that it didn't end with that.
I felt like that would kind of push the responsibility off the CMC and kind of ruin the original point of the episode. So I'm glad that that didn't happen.
It did help to push the point that you shouldn't be a busybody, you shouldn't go spreading idle gossip, and you shouldn't lie about stuff in order to get ratings. It's about journalistic integrity and about being honest with yourself and being honest with others and respecting others' privacy as well.
And it had the nice little side message about peer pressure and about just the kinds of influences that it can have on people.
Yeah. And so we see the Cutie Mark Crusaders, when they post these stories, when people find out that they're the ones who are Gabby Gums, that they can't get anybody to listen to them anymore. All of Ponyville is closing its doors to them. Twilight goes so far as to erect a force field. They can't even talk to Fluttershy because she's been crying non-stop since the article came out. Rainbow Dash just freaking puts a rain cloud over them and stomps on it to soak them all up every time they come near her. That's another scene that was great, was when they're just like, "You're not going to talk to us at all?" Yep. And it's like, "So you won't even listen to us for one moment and let us explain?" Nope. And then Big Macintosh winds up being the one who rails into them with this big speech and how they should be ashamed of themselves. And it was glorious.
Complete role reversal.
It's nice to finally get some more words from him other than, "Yep, nope, and the stuff we got in Hearts and Hooves Day."
I thought it was a great scene. It just to show the connection between Applejack and Big Mac, that they've got each other's backs like that. I mean, we already knew that they did, but it just kind of showed it once again and in a really interesting way.
And so, after trying everybody and getting nobody to listen to them, they cannot write a new story because they have zero material. Everyone knows that the Cutie Mark Crusaders are Gabby Gums, and everybody's very, very self-aware at this point because of all of the embarrassing stuff that's been put in the newspaper. So even if people didn't know that the Cutie Mark Crusaders were Gabby Gums, so many people are embarrassed that they're being incredibly cautious with what they're doing now anyways. So this leads to the Cutie Mark Crusaders wondering how in the heck they're going to have an article in time for the next paper without Diamond Tiara posting the blackmail material. It results in them coming up with this idea. They'll wait till the very, very last minute to bring their article in and bank on the idea that Diamond Tiara will publish it without looking at it first, which works. Diamond Tiara tells them, "You're lucky I'm nice," and then tells the presses to immediately print the story. Well, it turns out to be a story where the Cutie Mark Crusaders bare their hearts and apologize for what they've done and say that, they've learned their lesson and that they started worrying more about the ratings and the numbers rather than worrying about people's personal feelings. Now, admittedly, there's a little bit of a situation that kind of feels like it was almost cut off at the last minute because Diamond Tiara makes this statement after the article is posted that the Cutie Mark Crusaders messed with the wrong pony and that they're going to regret this come tomorrow. Yet, after the transition, we're shown Shira Lee is removing Diamond Tiara from her position as editor-in-chief and stating that perhaps it was a bad idea to give them that much control.
Really? You don't say.
Really, these are kindergartners, essentially. You need adult supervision there to streamline it and make sure that it's about stuff that's going to be relevant or impersonal to kind of avoid this big debacle and controversy.
Haven't you seen anything that Diamond Tiara does in your class? Haven't you noticed the whole class, sagged when you said that she was in charge? Do you observe anything? I kind of feel like they wanted to move the focus more from there's always going to be an adult to get in the way to you need to have personal responsibility for things.
So, episode ends with Diamond Tiara being removed from her position as editor-in-chief and Featherweight getting the job as editor-in-chief and the job as photographer going to the guy who was originally working on printing presses.
On spraying ink everywhere.
Spraying ink everywhere.
And somehow printing papers.
We get a nice little fall as Diamond Tiara trips on the ink that's all over the floor and falls on the printing press. And everybody's laughing as we get a close-up of her face, and we get an old-fashioned Looney Tunes style fade to black, and cue credits. So, all in all, the episode it was about responsibility. It was about making sure to be honest with yourself, honest with others, and
to think about others when you're trying to go for your own goals.
Don't let fame or ratings get in the way of that.
Or peer pressure.
To finally wrap this up, Crescendo, let's start with you. What was your rating for this episode?
I'm going to have to give it 4.5 newspapers out of 5. Because the writing of this episode was really fun. I thoroughly enjoyed the story overall. There wasn't as much comedy as some other episodes, but I think it still fit perfectly. And I think it wrapped up nicely, actually. 4.5 out of 5.
All right, Autumn, what about you?
I'm giving it a 4 because I thought the lesson was great. They were right on target with it, and they sort of threw a curveball at the end with not involving the blackmail, like you were mentioning earlier, we were discussing. And it really did wrap up well, even though they didn't follow up with, "You'll pay for this," and I think it really was a good episode and had good humor. So yeah, solid 4.
So you listed a whole bunch of positive stuff. Why a 4 out of 5 instead of a 5 out of 5? What were the problems with it?
If I were to give it a 5, it would be like something extraordinary.
Okay, I can see that.
It just was a very pleasant and fun episode. There wasn't something standing out like Luna Eclipsed or Lesson Zero. But that's probably just because my inner, crazy fan isn't freaking out at the episode exactly. But if I'm going to take a step back and look at it critically, there wasn't anything just standing out that would set it apart, like, say, Hurricane Fluttershy, which is probably my favorite episode as well. If I were to rate Hurricane Fluttershy looking back now, that might have gotten a 5 from me.
Well, I guess that just leaves mine now. I personally am going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. I felt it was a really, really strong episode. Really well done. Tons of callbacks. You got Trixie, Smarty Pants, Celestia's trolling with the cake eating. You've got all of these really, really funny moments. All of the main 6 made an appearance. All of the main six were great in the episode. The Cutie Mark Crusaders really shined. Diamond Tiara was hilarious because the entire time I'm just thinking of her as this kind of pony version of Jonah Jameson. Somebody needs to draw a picture of her with the JJ mustache and cigar in her mouth.
It'll be up tonight.
It was just really great, but I give it a 4.5 out of 5 because there were a couple little contrived pieces of the story that were necessary for the story to be able to even proceed, but they were contrived. And that was pretty much the plot device of Cheerilee not being involved in the newspaper because kids are harsh. Kids can be cruel. And kids can be really, really lax in the consideration of others' personal space and what others are thinking. And that's why an adult is necessary. So Cheerilee not being involved was big enough to knock it down just a little bit. And I stress that 4.5 out of 5 is a good score, guys. It's a 90%, an A-, 9 out of 10. It's not a bad score. It's a really fun episode. I would definitely recommend it to people who are new to the series, at least as far as the Cutie Mark Crusaders go. Of the Cutie Mark Crusaders episodes, this is one of the strongest ones, and it definitely puts the Cutie Mark Crusaders in a good enough light to show how desperate they are to find their place as far as getting their cutie marks go, and how that can sometimes overshadow common sense and respect for other people's privacy. And it does help to show them as characters and develop them further along the line. So yes, my score, 4.5 out of 5. So we've got 2 4.5s and a 4. So yeah, that's pretty good.
I would definitely suggest it as one of the first. Like, if you're just starting the show, this would be one of the go-to episodes.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of characters that people would probably want to be introduced to first, but
you would want to go to this one if you want to see what some of the fan stuff is all about.
Yeah, I can see that.
You can just look up a couple of things and then watch the episode and see what the references are all about.
All right, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. We've given our scores. That was My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, Ponyville Confidential. Thank you for tuning in. We realize this has gone on really long. We're sorry for going off on so many tangents.
It was a strong episode.
With so much to talk about. That's what made it a good episode. There was just so much to talk about. Be sure to tune in next time. I'm Brushin Bones.
I'm Crescendo.
And I'm AutumnSpice.
And we will see you next time here at Everfree Radio.